Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. If you've been following along with our hobby writing series, you know we've already tackled the mindset, building the daily habit, and unpacking the whole hobby writer's toolkit. But today we're putting all of that to work. Our entire focus right now is on one specific, frankly, massive hurdle: overcoming the sheer intimidation of the blank page and actually finishing a piece of writing. Look, we're not here to craft a masterpiece today. We are definitely not outlining some multi-book epic. We're here to experience the absolute literal sigh of relief that comes from getting just one small thing done. Because as the saying goes, finish beats perfect every single time. I really want you to anchor yourself to this idea. When you're just starting out, quality is not the ultimate goal. Completion is. That one single skill, the act of just finishing something, that is the exact threshold separating someone who merely wants to write from someone who actually writes. So take a breath and let go of all that pressure to be brilliant right now. You literally just need to be done.
All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, the one rule.
And moving right along to Section 2, shrink your goal.
You know, the absolute biggest reason we see new hobby writers totally burn out and give up is because they aim way too high on their very first try. I mean, they're out here trying to plot a sprawling fantasy series before they've even finished a single scene. Instead, we need to shrink that goal. Think about microfiction, just 100 to 300 words. That is perfect for capturing a single fleeting moment. Or maybe a vignette, around 300 to 800 words, just for a tiny slice of life. When you visually shrink the word count, you completely remove the heavy, suffocating pressure of a massive narrative. You don't need a complex 3-act structure for a vignette. You just need a moment.
So this is your new golden target right here, 200 to 500 words. Whether it's microfiction or a tiny vignette, this number is 100% achievable. Think about it. You can sit down with a cup of coffee and before it even gets cold, you've got a finished draft. Remember, finishing is the entire point today, and setting this specific constraint virtually guarantees you're going to cross that finish line.
Okay, Section 3, the 5-minute assembly. Now, if you spend way too much time preparing, you inevitably slip into planning mode, which, let's be honest, is exactly where hobby writing usually goes to die. So we're putting a strict, literal 5-minute timer on your prep work to grab 4 essential elements. Step 1, plot. Give yourself exactly 1 minute to think of a simple what-if based on your actual day. Step 2, character. Take 30 seconds and just pick the very first face of someone you know that pops into your head. Step 3, setting. Another 30 seconds. Pick a place you already know like the back of your hand. And step 4, dialogue. 1 minute to grab a line you overheard today or just, make one up on the spot. Bam, done. It's fast-paced, intuitive, and completely stress-free.
Let's see how this actually plays out in reality. For the plot, what if the person sitting next to me on the bus this morning is secretly the last speaker of a dying language? Notice how a super simple what if from a totally mundane morning commute instantly generates a really compelling story seed. You didn't have to invent a magical kingdom or a whole new world. You just looked at the person next to you and asked a question. Zero overthinking required. Then we just stack the rest of the pieces. Character? Let's go with my quiet uncle who never really explains himself. Setting? The damp bus with those awful fluorescent lights. Dialogue? A line I literally overheard yesterday. That's not what I meant, and you know it. By slopping these real-life fragments together, you've got everything you need. In about 4 minutes of total prep time, you've built yourself a sandbox. The planning phase is officially over. Now it's time to open up a blank document and write. Which brings us to Section 4, start in the middle. Once you have those pieces assembled, whatever you do, do not outline any further. Seriously, just start. But, and this is a big but, don't try to craft the perfect opening sentence, because that is exactly where most people freeze up. Instead of a traditional, kind of boring start like, he walked into the room, look at how we can drop the character straight into the action. He was already sitting when she noticed his hands were shaking. See the difference? Real scenes feel instantly more alive and gripping when you bypass the awkward intro and drop the reader straight into the middle of the mess.
All right, Section 5, the power of messy.
Look, there is going to be an inevitable moment, probably halfway through your draft, where the writing just feels rough. It happens to all of us. Now, if you're trying to write perfectly, this is the exact spot where you end up endlessly outlining, rewriting that first line 20 times, and then ultimately abandoning the piece. But if you are writing just to finish, you push right through that messy middle. You reach the end no matter how rough it is. Chasing perfection? That's a trap. It keeps you stuck at the starting line. But writing to finish makes you a faster, much braver writer. Because, honestly, a finished, messy piece teaches you way more than a perfect,
unfinished piece. Every single time. Without exception. Just getting to the end and typing that final sentence is a massive victory all on its own. When you get near the end and your brain starts whispering that the piece is terrible, ignore it. Actually, scratch that. Tell it to be quiet and keep typing. Save the rough file, you're done. You literally ran a full lap around the track. Finally, Section 6. What comes next? Normally, the aftermath of a first draft involves this grueling, soul-crushing revision process. But here's the beauty of being a hobby writer. You don't have to do any of that. You have complete freedom. You can just save it and move on. You could read it tomorrow and decide to keep just one really good line. You can do a light polish, share it with a trusted friend, or even post it publicly if you're feeling bold. Or, and I want to stress that this is a perfectly valid option, you can do absolutely nothing. You do not owe your writing an audience, a revision, or publication. The act of actually writing the thing, that was the whole point. So for your first few months, I want you to make this your golden rule. Finish one small thing this week, then do another one next week. Volume of completions beats quality of attempts, hands down, every single time. Don't even think about upgrading to bigger projects until you've knocked out at least 4 or 5 of these tiny micro pieces. By building that volume over time, finishing multiple tiny pieces will naturally start to sharpen your unique voice. It teaches you instinctually, without you having to force a thing. Which leaves us with one final, slightly provocative question. You've got the tools, you know how to do the 5-minute assembly, and you have absolute permission to write a wonderfully, terribly messy 200 words. So, will you finish your first messy draft today? Open a blank document, grab your everyday elements, and prove to yourself once and for all that finished really does beat perfect.